Before there was Mario, Japan's most beloved pop culture export was Godzilla. Starting as an atomic horror in 1984, the genre-defining monster quickly became more cuddly, standing with humans to fight off alien invaders rather than trashing their cities. Godzilla had become our friend, but not friend to all children. That's a different giant reptile. By the mid-70s, Godzilla had been reduced to kind of a parody of himself, and so Toho decided to stop the franchise for a while. But you can't keep the world's most popular giant monster down, and in 1984 they rebooted the series, discarding everything since the original 1954 movie, and released The Return of Godzilla. Now you might be saying, okay, thanks for the primer, but this is a 1988 Famicom game. Well, that 1984 movie was the previous piece of Godzilla media that was released. It had been 4 years since there was anything Godzilla released in Japan. And so this Famicom game isn't really based on what was happening with the Godzilla franchise at the time. Instead, it's based on the earlier films. The game seems like it was relatively successful, because shortly after its release, Toho decided to make another Godzilla movie. For what it's worth, don't worry about the difference between Gojira and Godzilla. You can see right there on the box that Toho uses both. And if you went up to someone in Japan and asked them where the giant Godzilla head that you could zipline into its mouth is, they'd know what you were talking about. This particular Godzilla game is fondly remembered by Japanese players. I think it's due to the graphics, because it does not play well. The story of the game is that Star X has declared war on Earth and sent out a fleet of ships and giant monsters to attack the solar system. And because they're friends of humanity, Godzilla and Mothra set out to stop them. Toho fans might have noticed in this opening sequence that those spacecraft are actually the Atragon, the title vehicle from a science fiction film from the 1960s. There's a lot of that in Gojira. This giant monster is Gojira, who comes from the film Space Amoeba. It never met Godzilla until this game. And Mogira is a giant robot from a 1957 film. It didn't appear in a Godzilla movie until 1994. The game is basically a mashup of all of Toho's properties. The game has you start on a hexagonal tactical map, and your goal is to get to the satellite dish at the far side of the map. There are 8 maps in the game, and you can get a password to continue from the map you left off on. You've got Godzilla and Mothra. The difference here is that Mothra can generally move 2 hexes instead of 1. I don't know why this hex map exists. It doesn't add anything to the game and just generally slows you down. After you've moved your monster on the map, you get an action scene where you fight to your destination. Here, Godzilla and Mothra play very differently. Godzilla has to lumber around and has some brawling moves. The A button punches, the B button kicks. You have to press up to jump, but Godzilla can't jump very high. And you can press down to crouch. When you're crouching, the kick does a tail swipe. Godzilla also has his atomic breath. Press the start button and he charges it up, and then unleashes a cone that burns through all of his power bar. The power bar recharges very quickly, so don't be afraid to use that attack to clear out enemies in front of you. For Mothra, she can fire her I-beams when you press A, and fly around. That is it for her default abilities. Hitting start drops her poison spores, which look just like her body. Using that only goes through a little bit of power, and so that's really the attack you want to use most of the time. In these side-scrolling action portions, getting hit by anything sends you flying backwards. And right from the start, your enemies unleash tons of attacks against you. It's very easy to get pinned down and not be able to move forward. In those cases, the special attacks will help. What's worse is you don't have any invulnerability frames. Your own attacks will destroy most incoming attacks, and a lot of things get destroyed when they contact you. But there's a few objects that will just drain your entire health bar away if you happen to be in the wrong spot when they connect. When you destroy some things, this little robot will pop out. He'll refill your life if you can collect him. If you've brushed up against a monster on the map, then after you complete your side-scrolling battle, you'll take it on in a one-on-one fight. Or the monster could attack you on its turn. And here you're just trying to wear down your enemy's life bar. However, if the fight goes on too long, then the battle just ends. Your monster is still down whatever health it's lost, but the other monster is refilled to full if you try to fight once more. And that is actually a major problem with Gojira. You can wear that monster down to just a sliver of health and then just have the screen fade out. And there's major problems with the hit detection in this game. It's annoying in the side-scrolling battles, but it's lethal in the monster fights. Sometimes your attacks just don't do anything. If it was your atomic breath, then you're almost definitely not going to be able to finish the battle. And Mothra just doesn't have the damage output to beat any of the giant monsters. Gojira is the weakest of them, but because of the way it jumps forward, it can pin you in the corner and you just get hit continuously, unable to do anything. The only thing you can do is wait for it to randomly decide to jump away. Your monsters will level up as they fight through the area, and the swirly spots on the map are special battles that will give extra experience points. Like here where you're fighting one of the Atragon spaceships. The US version rebalances the game a little bit to make it easier. Godzilla and Mothra have extra attack power so they can actually defeat the giant monsters. And they're both given additional movement points so you don't spend forever walking the map. One nice thing that the Famicom version has is 2 tracks by Akira Ifukube. He was the composer for the films, including the famous march that was adapted as the title screen music. A sequel for this game was released in the US, but the Famicom release was cancelled. Japanese fans, however, did get a Game Boy sequel. I think Gojira is a very pretty game, and if you looked at it just in screenshots, it comes across as pretty awesome. But then you try to play it and you get bounced around every hit, you have to deal with that silly hex map, and you struggle to beat even the basic monsters, and you just wind up having a miserable time.